Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from WHITEFOX. Now, here's the deal.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a very fun guest in with me today, Mr. Jack Henderson, someone that I've known for many years. We initially met through marketing, and it's been how long now? Probably 6-7 years since we've had a relationship and done a lot of work together. Thanks for coming on the pod and flying down from Sydney.
Mate, thanks for having me.
Henderson Advocacy.
That's it, mate.
Where do we start? It really started for me, like my memory of you is COVID. And, you know, you starting the podcast, me being one of your very first guests, and just...
I had to use your marketing company to get you on as a fucking guest.
I know, how funny. Well, we did the branding for you.
That's right.
Myself and Aiden.
Yeah.
And
Good
your
branding.
brief was, we need to stand out. And I think you are the perfect example of being unapologetically yourself and being able to do great business in blue chip markets, and your branding actually doesn't deter the customer because you are you and your team represents what you believe. Talk me through about branding and how important it's been for you to explode on the scene over these years.
It's something that, like, to begin with, we just wanted to be cool, you know. Hence the reason we come to you guys. We're like, fuck, look at this sharp operator. You know, you were the front man then of WHITEFOX Real Estate, and that's how we found out about you guys. And I was like, oh, well, if he's, I think actually no, I saw a video of you talk at ARIC.
The very first one.
Yeah, with Ryan. Was it Ryan? Ryan, yeah. And I think that's where I first come across you. And then,
What were you doing at the time?
I was in construction and mining.
So you weren't even in real estate?
No, I was a machine operator. If anyone knows what a grader is, that's what I used to drive, or operator, I should say. And then, I was like, I just want a sharp brand like this guy. That's us. And at the time, I was like as I transitioned into the industry, I was an owner-occupier buyer's agent. So, you know, suit and tie and turtleneck in the winter and all that jazz. And then over time, it's just sort of developed as I've probably gotten more comfortable in my skin and cared less about what people think about me. It's sort of developed into what it is now.
But it was pretty big. I mean, you exploded on the scene with the flamingo and dressing up and doing a lot of content. And a lot of buyer's agents weren't doing it. And still to this day, they don't do them with the amount of branding that you, I mean, look at you right now. You're covered in flamingos. You've probably got flamingo panties on.
I do. Crutchless.
Talk to me about just onboarding and getting visibility and just what it takes. Like, how many people try to talk you out of doing what you do as you've grown? Now people won't say anything because you are successful in your field. But for those first few years, you're getting teased, you're getting bagged, you're getting bullied by the industry. Talk me through how you mentally get through those moments and how you don't break, because that, for me, is the most impressive thing with you.
I think I've always been a person, like whether it was in school or, you know, when I was working and mining and construction, where I've only listened to the opinions of people that I've respected. So, like, the reality is when you get into the real estate industry, I was in construction and mining, but I was earning good money. I owned a few properties. Like, for my age, I was doing relatively well. So I had a lot of self-confidence and you know, when I'm hearing fucking opinions and you know, people talking shit, and then I look at these people and I'm like, you're just a bum, you know, like, why would I ever take the opinion of you? But then when you hear it from people that you really respect or you look up to, that's when you think, okay, maybe I am doing something wrong, or maybe I should look at you know, the way that I'm doing stuff. And there's been many of those moments. You know,
okay, so you've had people that you do look up to, you do respect, they've tried to sort of pull you back in line or give you advice?
Just like, you know, because there's been many times where I've done things or said things or, you know, acted in a certain way where, you know, someone said to me, hey, you shouldn't do that, or you should think about how you say, you know, talk to people, or whatever it is, you know.
So to give context now to your position in the marketplace, and we'll go back through the growth of it, how many offices now across Australia?
3 physical premises, and then we've got satellites down here and in Adelaide.
And advocates that you've got working in the business?
There's 120 across the group, 60 or just under 60 inside of the advocacy part of the business.
And how many transactions, how many properties are you buying a year?
Oh, fuck, I don't even know. 40 to 50 a month, give or take.
Okay.
Depending on the month, obviously.
All right, so there's
but that's
some
growing rapidly, you know.
Absolutely. So there's some serious following, but there's also a lot of intel and learnings that come from that, because essentially your grassroots, when you're buying and you're selling and you're doing that type of volume, you get this really nice national understanding of what's happening, which markets are flying, where people should be parking their money, and what type of buyers are buying particular types of property.
Yeah.
So that then inadvertently makes you a commentator of the industry. When did you start the business?
2020.
2020. So we're not talking that long ago. We're talking
tell a
5
lie,
years.
Tell a lie. It was 2021. 2020, I would join Trelease Associates. 2021, I started Henderson.
Yeah. So 2021, you've started Henderson.
Yeah.
We're now 2025. To be buying 40 odd properties a month is incredible. What has made that happen? Talk me through the process of building your brand in a very saturated market.
Yes. Obviously, brand has been a big thing. Like never not doing content, constantly, evolving how I do content, which now seems to be working better than it ever has, because again, I'm the most comfortable in my own skin. Same generic shit you're going to hear from most people, I'm assuming, when you ask how they've grown their business, having a really good team. So you don't know a good team member until you've hired one. Like you think you've got a good team member and then you hire one, and then it dramatically changes the way that you do business. You're like, fuck, that's what a good team member is like. So that's been big. Obviously having awesome people around me to give me advice. And
Well, I'll be honest with you, like getting you on the podcast isn't because we've worked together or because of us having a friendship. You're on the podcast because of that shift in doubling down on your comfortability with yourself and saying things that I think no other advocate will say. A lot of people talk about where you should be buying and what you should be doing, and your shift over the last few months has been really promoting where you shouldn't, and it's created a lot of controversy for people in those pockets, and it's made you really come through the screen. Like it's funny as how you're absolutely rinsing these areas, but it's more so because again it falls into your strategy of being talked about.
Yeah, it's like, a controversial opinion is just one that differs from the majority, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it differs from the majority. So a lot of my opinions are controversial, but like I genuinely believe what I say all the time. So when I say it with conviction. And yeah, it obviously cuts through and it pisses a lot of people off.
It cuts through so much. It really does. And I believe that there's so many industries. I get this question all the time. How do I stand out on social media? How do I do this? How do I do that? Well, for starters, be yourself. First and foremost, have branding pillars because they give you an identity.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're consistent. You are so consistent with putting out opinion pieces and content that they're the three things that you just need to do. And over years, you'll see the benefit. It doesn't happen overnight.
I've been doing content now before I was even in the industry. I used to sit on my couch. Emma would set up a camera just like that. She couldn't be in the room because I'd get nervous talking to the camera. So she'd have to go in the bedroom, and then I'd talk about Newcastle, or I'd talk about Sydney, or I'd talk about, something that I had done. And it was terrible. Like if you scroll back through my Instagram, you see all the original pieces. But that was like the formation of doing content. And then off the back of that, you do more and more and more. And another thing shifted as well is like now our business relies on nobody. So when I first got into the industry, and this is one of those like pivotal moments, it was all referral based. It's
you need the agents giving you clients.
Yeah, that's right. Referring you, and you fucking, you got to, sometimes you got to be someone you're not and pretend to like people that, I'd never spend 2 seconds with if, they weren't giving me business. And that's the reality. And then I was the best man at one of my good friends' still wedding, and I've completely cooked up the speech. Half of the Eastern Suburbs real estate agents were there.
What did you say?
I just swore. I was just myself. I was pissed. I swore. It was actually a good speech. Like I'd never really spent much time doing stuff, and I really thought about it, but I just fucked it up. Like I swore. I thought lots of people in the audience knew who I was for some reason. Tristan and I are best mates, so most people would know me. His family had no idea who I was, and the people who did know me were real estate agents. And then off the back of that, if my business was fully reliant on them referring, I would have had no business, because I was like, fuck, no one likes me anymore.
And so what, did they actually stop referring?
Yeah, man. Like, fuck, I could not, like, after that.
Oh my God.
That was like a key moment where, you know, majority of those people I've never spoke to since, like, you know, but the rumors and all that shit around the industry.
But hold on, what about the guy that got married?
He's still a good mate of mine. We had lunch last week.
Still great mates.
Yeah, still really good mates. And look,
Shit, that's funny.
The big thing was I swore, like saying, you know, a few words I shouldn't have said in front of Nanu and Popo and all that stuff.
Probably beginning with C.
It was, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And anyway, I was super apologetic, but that key moment, I just, you know, I do a lot of self-reflection, and I was like, fuck, I'm never, ever, ever going to have a business that relies on someone else other than Jack Henderson and my inner team. And that's where the strategy around our business really changed from being owner-occupier referral based to, you know, being very much into paid marketing.
So you're now putting out all of your lead generation into the consumer. You're cutting out that agent, which is, you know, another business.
Yeah,
so you're now just B2C, like as much as possible.
Less than 0.5 of 1% out of our business would be referral based now, other than clients referring us more clients.
Okay, and that's all underpinned by branding and by content?
Organic content and paid, yeah. Like we spend $300,000 a month on paid ads. So,
and where are those ads across?
Meta. Yeah, so Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
It's grown to that level, but now it's like they go hand in hand.
And how different is your content? What, is it all you? Is it very, do you rely heavily on your face?
Yeah, like yes and no. I mean, like some of the bits of content aren't me, some of them are, but you know, I built the business around Jack to begin with, right? So I don't do the actual day-to-day buying and all the rest of it anymore. The team does that, but the strategy and that sort of stuff is still very much Jack.
When did you pull back and stop buying the homes?
That was a few years ago now.
I mean, it's only been open for a few years.
Yeah, so probably like 2 years ago, I would say 24 months ago, I stopped actually buying.
So it took 3 years to establish.
Yeah, so 2021, I did all the buying. 2022, I did all the buying in Sydney and then had people in Newcastle doing the buying. 2023, I stopped doing as much buying, but was still involved in, you know, like deal support and certain clients and all the rest of it. Last year, I did zilch, and and this year, I couldn't tell you the last time.
Which is amazing because you're leading as a CEO. You've eliminated key person risk from a transaction perspective, and you've been able to scale.
Yeah. And it happens slowly, right? There's always things that go wrong and go right, but now my core focus is on supporting the team and training them, and you know, trying to be as good of a leader as I possibly can, and then like content and marketing.
Now, I had a lady in here recently, literally last week, and she's an expert in crisis management. Okay, so she works with big organizations, and she was fascinating. Now, you had that exact same. You would have needed her, 2 years ago? Yeah. So you're 3 years into the business, and you're all over a current affair and yada, yada, yada. Pretty much it came across being an industry insider as somebody that was also in the industry that was probably jealous and disgruntled. That's what it looked like. But to the everyday consumer, you were painted to be this person that was doing things that you shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Off the back of that, you have exploded. And most people, you know, when you touch a little snail and it retracts and it goes back in, that's what most people do.
A snail.
You know, when you touch the little eyes and it freaks out.
Does a snail ever turn into anything or no?
A snail
is a snail forever. Yeah, it's not like a caterpillar.
Well, I think as a kid, I thought that it was a slug that then found a shell, but I think they're very different. I think snail's a snail.
A slug that found a shell.
No, a slug that found Jack Henderson and Jack Henderson found a shell.
That's right.
So, talk to me about when you've got mainstream media on your back. You're 3 years in. You could easily fold, and you probably had those thoughts
for sure.
Talk me through that process and how you got through it. Because none of us
at the time, it felt like felt like my world was collapsing.
Did it feel like there was a vice on your brain?
Yeah, I just like our business decreased by. Well, that year I think we were 30% down on the year before. But like when you're 30% down on revenue, you're like negative profit, right? Like we lost a lot of money. It was costing a lot of money. And I was like, fuck, am I going to have to sell real estate? And like it was just a lot of shit. My partner got diagnosed with breast cancer.
All in this 1 year?
All in this 1 year. Like within fucking like months of each other. I think the story went live in April. Emma found out she had breast cancer in April.
And how old's Emma?
She's 30. Fuck, I don't want to cook this up. 32?
Yeah, 32. It's devastating.
Yeah. She's 32.
And she's okay?
92 she was born. Yeah, she's good now. Yeah. But like chemo and radiation and fucking operations and all that shit. So it was a lot
And then
going
literally
on.
a current affair.
Yeah, Four Corners it was.
Four corners.
It was on
Mate,
front page of the newspaper.
you would have been thinking, fuck, what ladder did I walk under?
No, I was like, the thing that I thought is like, I have an aspiration to have a global business and be a billionaire. Like, that's my selfish desire. And at the point in time, I was like, this is just a test to see how bad you really want it. You know, like if you say you want to do this shit, then you got to get through these tough times because I know there's going to be one in the future and probably one after that and one after that. Like you see all these incredibly successful people and they all have these key moments in their careers and in their lives. So, and again, that was like a point where we pivoted. It taught me a lot about unit economics was a big one around, you know, how much you charge people, what the gross profit is on a client. I learned a lot about marketing and paid marketing around, you know, the person who can spend the most amount to acquire a customer will ultimately win. We changed our strategy from being traditional buyer's agent to, you know, building out the accelerator strategy, which was buy, renovate, add value to properties. And that really hit. So there was lots of things that I just did off the back of it, mainly out of desperation.
Yeah, because you had to find other ways to bring revenue in.
Yeah. And so it was a key moment. Like at that year, my business partner and I exited. You know, so
you had another shareholder in Henderson?
Yeah, we had another shit. That's what the whole fucking story was about, that I had a shareholder in Henderson that they thought there was collusion, which was BS. And they actually knew it was BS because they had all the documentation before they ran the story, but, you know, was good for the papers. So there was lots of really good stuff that come off the back of it. You know, there's that saying that the best gifts in life come badly wrapped. So
a great Tom Panos line.
Yeah. So that was what happened. And then, you know, 2023, December, Mark exited out of the business, went into 2024 with this like, you know, it's just me now. So, you know, when you got a business partner, they're sort of like, and he was a lot older and, you know, probably had a lot more wealth than I did. So there's always that like, oh, fuck, if something ever happens, you know, hopefully he can help. But that was just me. And
this is now 2024.
This is start of 2024, yeah. And then, I mean, last year our business was 400% up on 2023 and
it's an amazing turnaround.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need that shock to the system. You need that, you know, my turning point was obviously just getting sick in 2021, 2022. But you need to be stopped in your tracks and you need to sit back and reflect and go, okay, what do I need to do here? And watching you pivot around that situation and come out as strong as an ox, I think has been amazing. And also, you started posting more about your physical endeavors, you know, your runs and so forth. So how did this come into play? When did you start doing these marathons and I mean, just to put this into perspective, a couple of weeks ago you ran over 300 kilometers.
Yeah, 205 miles.
205 miles, which is absurd. And you're not a runner, but you are a runner now.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I wasn't a runner, and now I can just run long distances. I wouldn't say I'm a runner though. So that was like all of that sort of stuff. Again, it all happened around the same time. Like the no drinking thing or giving up the piss was the first thing where I was like, okay, if I want to take my business and personal to the next level, I'm loose on the piss, like really loose. So
well, clearly from your speech.
If you ever see me in public and I'm on the piss, don't say hello. Did you, Jack Henderson?
Did you stop drinking when this whole story was coming?
Nah, it was before then. I stopped drinking in 2022. I think that was the first full year of not drinking that I did. And there was slip ups and all the rest of it, but like 99.9% of the time I was good. 23, I was off the piss again. And that was the first thing where I was like consciously going, okay, I'm going to really focus on growing myself and growing the business. And then all the running stuff just come out of like saying I was going to do something and actually backing up with doing it. And then you just get this like, you know, people think I'm really self-confident already, but the reason I have this self-confidence now, and it probably shines through in all the stuff that I do, is because I've just done lots of things that I didn't think I was able to do before I done them or I did them. And then you do it and you're like, holy fuck.
And because you're speaking about what you're going to do, you feel responsible and accountable.
Oh, way more responsible than not telling people. Yeah.
Yeah. So you actually feed off the expectation that you're going to do it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Both internally and externally.
Because most people think that you can't.
Yeah, and even you, like me as an individual, like when I was going into that 200-mile run, the previous longest run I did was 12 months earlier. I did 100 miles. So this time last year, I did a 100-mile run, which was the biggest I'd done by like 3 times again. And I was like, fuck, how am I going to do double that?
And do you know anyone in your circles that has done the run that you've just done?
No one.
So you couldn't get
In
advice?
Australia, there's only one 200-mile run. That's it. So 205 miles. All the real big ones like that are in the US.
And who are these people that are running them? Because to me, right, they're probably not you. They're not running a team of 120 people, buying 40 properties a month, creating content nonstop. I mean, who are these people that are running?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are just, like
9 to 5ers?
Yeah, or there was actually the guy who won the race. I was running with him for the first 100 Ks or something, and he had a coffee business that he'd sold, and his partner went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and then just all like the school teachers and just people who like their job is probably the second to their life, and they're running or they're
that's why I'm saying this, because for me, running's secondary for you.
Yeah, very much so. Fucking.
I don't know.
After doing that run, I was like, oh my God.
It's outrageous. Are you gonna? But you now want to run a bigger one?
Yeah. Well, there is one bigger one that I'm aware of called the Arizona Monster, which is 300 miles, which I'm going to go do next year. And there you go. So the first time I've said I'm going to do it, so now I'm going to do it.
You better go do it. Otherwise, I'll be coming down on you.
Yeah, but it's just this incredible like. And it didn't start as the big runs, right? It started off by doing a half marathon, and then it goes to a marathon, and then it goes to 60K Great Ocean Road down in Victoria here. And then you just continue to go like a little bit bigger. 100Ks I did in Tassie, and then I did the 100 miles, and then you just continue to slowly, and every time you do that, if you try to go from a half marathon to a 200-mile run, like the step is way too big, or it'd be way too big for me. Because there's no like previous proof that you can do it. Where like the 200-mile run, I'd done 100 miles before, and at the end of last year, I did a 200K from Sydney to Newcastle.
So you keep bouncing between miles and Ks, and I get lost.
So 100 miles, 160 Ks.
But why do you bounce between the two?
Oh, because the runs are called, because it's formed in the US, these big runs. Okay. So when they come to Australia, they call them 100-mile.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll keep it to kilometres.
So I did 160 Ks, and then I did a 200K run at the end of last year, which again was one of my goals that I'd set. And I did it in November or December. So when I went into the 330K, 200-mile run, in my head, I'd already done 200 Ks before. So getting to 200 Ks, I was like, oh,
Got
fuck.
you.
And then it's just that extra 130 that I hadn't done before that I had to overcome. And then you get there and you're like, oh yeah. So when I go do this 300-mile run, which is 500 Ks.
500 Ks.
Yeah, or 400 and something, 90 something.
Over how many days?
As fast as you can do it.
As fast as you can do it.
Yeah. So it will probably take, it took me 72 hours nonstop to do the 200-mile.
How old are you now?
28.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what you're squishing into, in particular the last 5 years. These runs, the brand, your partner going through, cancer's no easy, feat, and you're there with her as well. You've got the travel. You've stopped certain things such as drinking and so forth. Like there's so much trial and error with building the life that you want. And I'm very interested and excited to see, well, what's the next 5? If this is what the 5 years to date looks like, what are you planning to do for the next 5?
I've got it very clearly written out.
Tell me, what is it?
Well, in the next 5 years, so I have this, and I actually asked you this question the other day, and you wouldn't have realised that I'd asked you it for my own personal belief, but around property management and asset management. So I guess in the sales agency world, a little bit different, but in the way that I'm thinking about it, huge opportunity in asset management in Australia. There's 3 million properties in Australia, investment properties. The largest property management business, probably 20,000. So it's a very, very fragmented industry, and the reason it's fragmented and the reason no one's been able to scale it from my point of view is because most businesses are sales first, property management second. They run property management because they get the churn off the back of it, which feeds their sales business. And it's always this thing that's a loss leader and never makes any money. But for us, we're investment focused buyers agency or wealth creation company. Asset management is without tenants in your property, you have no investment property. You have no ability to build a portfolio. And before you bought your first house, did you rent?
I did.
Matt, did you rent before you bought your first house? No. You bought it first, moved out of home straight into your first home. Yeah. Okay, you're different.
Polish.
You're the only person I've asked that said that. But nearly every single person I've asked, before they bought their home, they rented first.
Yeah.
Which means our future clients are our tenants. So my goal over the next 5 years is to grow a property management business of 50,000, which will be a very, very aggressive acquisition, which we're already on.
Will you do that organically, or will you buy?
Will be grown organically plus acquisition.
Yeah.
So we're in the process now of buying 4,500, which will make us the biggest in Newcastle, Hunter Valley, Sydney region. Anyway, the goal is 50,000 over the next.
The issue with property management, though, is the retention of property managers.
Yeah, but that's another thing. The opportunity is in that. So
is the opportunity in a tech perspective?
Yeah. So I asked you the question around AI. Like, this is all the stuff I was curious around. So the way property management has been done in years gone by is property manager is the person who does everything, right? It's like they do the tenant inquiries, they do ingoings, outgoings, routines, leasing, fucking deal with the landlords. And a property management business is very reliant on an individual, which it shouldn't be the way. So the way that we're building the business is property managers are absolutely still crucial, but property managers are not crucial for client relationship. Property managers, or we're going to call them property inspectors, are only important for the things humans have to do, which is ingoings, outgoings, routines, leasing. That's it.
Yeah.
We will have a layer between property inspectors and clients, which is agentic AI and then concierge on the top, which means the relationship and the reliance on a property manager will be next to nothing. So if you think about a company
what's good is that the ingoings, the outgoings, the routines and the leasing can just be done as an hourly rate.
Well, if you think about a company like Detector Inspector, which is real estate based, they've got people who go around and inspect smoke alarms.
Yeah, they can inspect the property.
That's right. So something like that
Correct.
business model, and
most people probably don't know, but I mean, property managers are anywhere from $85,000 to $120,000, depending on where you're based.
And then there's a restriction to how many properties that they can manage due to the way
which is
that the
normally
model
under 200.
That's right, due to the model that it's always been done. So, you're probably profitable as you get to 200 because you're maximizing the use of one person, and then your margins compress as you start to grow again because you've got to hire before you can grow.
So your road to becoming a billionaire, which is what you said earlier, what time limit have you given yourself on that?
I haven't really given myself a time limit. If we get to 50,000 assets under management, that's $150 million revenue business per annum. I've just joined YPO, which is called Young Presidents Organization. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to be in the room with people who are significantly larger than me. So I'm the smallest business, I would say, in YPO. And there's a company in the US called Greystar. They're the largest property management business in the US, and they've got 1 million properties, just over 1 million properties under management.
So what's their valuation?
No, I don't know. The owner's worth $5 billion US or $6 billion US. But regardless of that, it proves it can be done. And that's in a traditional sense. There's no AI in that business. It'd be superhuman capital heavy. But the way that I think about business now is it's all around lifetime value of a customer. If I can spend the most to acquire a customer, so let's hypothetically say that I can spend $100,000 to acquire a customer. No one else can spend $100,000 to acquire a customer because they're only selling them a buyer's agent service worth $20,000. So they're going to lose $80,000 in every single transaction. I'm not saying I can spend $100,000 on a customer, by the way. But let's say I can. And the only way you can do that is if every customer that you acquire is worth more than $100,000 over the lifetime of that customer. So for us, that's my obsession now, is all around cost to acquire and lifetime value.
How do you determine lifetime value of that customer if you've been in business for 5 years?
A lot of research, a lot of trial and error, a lot of I'm in Alex Hormozy's mastermind, so getting a lot of insights into other business models. Property management, for example.
What do you spend annually on coaching and personal development?
Probably this year, I don't know, $250,000, something, $300,000.
All right, and talk to me. What are you doing at the moment?
Tony Robbins is platinum, which I think was 135, excluding all the travel that goes on.
And what does that give you?
You're a part of his platinum community, which is only, I think maybe a couple of thousand
Worldwide.
Yeah, globally.
And how frequent are those trainings?
I've got a personal coach, which I have a coaching session every 10 days, which is more just an accountability thing. But the big upside in those is all the global events you get to go to. So obviously Tony's probably one of the most well-connected people in the world. So they just had their big wealth event in Canada, which I missed at the start of the year, where they had, I think it was like 30 billionaires talk. On his island in Fiji, and there's lots of. We're going to the one in Orlando. It's just one conversation
can change your life.
It's just like an unlock, and that's why I do this now. It's like when I go to Hormozy, it's like the stuff Hormozy talks about, I can listen to on his podcast. There's nothing revolutionary about what he tells me in that room versus what you get online, but it's all the other questions people ask.
What's one of those conversations that you've had that has categorically changed your life? That was an interaction, whether it be at an event or give me an example of one of those.
So the first one was like when I met Chris Gray, who was was my first ever mentor, who was just a property guy from Sydney. I found him on YouTube through a talk that he did with CPA as accounting. Yep. And I then paid $1,500 to go and have a lunch with him. He did this charity auction. Paid for his time. He said, "Oh, you paid $1,500. Let's actually go for lunch. We'll take you to lunch." Off the back of that, he said, we got this boat party in a few weeks' time. Do you want to come with your partner? I was like, oh yeah, no worries. Never been on a fucking boat in Sydney Harbour before. I was from Western Suburbs. Did that, and then his business partner and him had a share in another boat that they put up for sale. They put half of their share up for sale on Facebook. I got a personal loan from the ANZ, bought the share in the boat. 2 weeks later, this is when I was like 19. 2 weeks later, I was on this boat with these guys. And just the knowledge that I absorbed and being around all the people that were on that boat. It wasn't one thing specifically, but it was just the accumulation of the...
It's how they speak, what they talk about, how they think. It's very...
That was the thing. And then off the back of that, that was the catapult to where I am now. But probably one of the biggest things recently, the biggest unlocks is just around how to think about business, not in a real estate sense. Like in the real estate world, people think about real estate businesses as real estate businesses. We happen to work in the real estate space, but the reality is we're no different to any other client service business, So really dialing in on LTV of a customer, how much it costs to acquire that customer, and just being so obsessed with that. And that's dramatically changed our business. Like you think about our customers now, we capture finance on the front end because they use our finance team and they get exceptional results. Our advocacy services are 3 to 4 times more expensive than anyone in our industry. A lot of our clients add value to their properties. They use our building company. A lot of clients build second dwellings on their properties. We turn 1 into 2 property managements. We capture asset management on the back end. The way that I'm thinking about property management is we capture our clients further upstream than anyone is ever thinking about it, right?
Whilst they're a tenant.
That's right. And they will eventually be a customer. So
how do you catch that customer before they're a customer?
They become a tenant, right? Most tenants have a desire to buy a property one day.
So you're going to start marketing to the tenants of your
But not
portfolios.
about property management. Not about advocacy, right? Most people are not thinking about buying a property when they're tenants. They're thinking about how the fuck can I save money while I'm a tenant. So if you look at a business like Dave Ramsey, who's a billionaire in the US, it's all about financial education and helping people not be broke. Not about being billionaires or multimillionaires. It's like, well, how do you rent a property? How do you pay your bills? How do you do all this stuff and still invest for the future?
What's the first opportunity that you're going to unlock globally? You said that you want to be a global business.
Yeah, so that I think comes a long way down the track when eventually we'll be a fund where instead of us just investing for people on an individual basis, we'll invest in a group format. Yeah, which is a long way away. I'm not thinking about global for a long time. I'm very, very focused on.
But it's funny because when I asked you what you wanted, it was one of the first things that came out of your mouth.
Yeah, well, that's my big dream is like, but I got a long way. I'm 28, right? If I didn't get there for 30 years, I'd still be young.
100%.
So,
but particularly with AI, because I then thought, well, if you want to go global and you've got a brand that's very identifiable and you've got the ability to manage assets from afar, there's no reason why you can't also asset manage in multiple regions across the globe.
Very, very true. But there's 3 million in Australia. I only want 50,000 of them. And if I can get to 50,000, why can't I get to 500,000 in Australia? Like that's the reality. So there's so much opportunity in Australia where I don't even need to worry about anything beyond our shores for a very, very long time. And the like with asset management, I'm fucking obsessed with it at the moment, like absolutely obsessed with it. I don't talk about it too much, but it's the opportunity is because no one thinks there's an opportunity.
No, they don't.
Everyone's like, oh, fucking property management.
Yeah.
I'll just grow that because one day
I have zero care for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's just,
probably not your model, right? It's not your business. You're in a different game and you're thinking.
Well, you said it earlier. People don't think outside of the industry. You know, they think that they're in real estate. We are in real estate, but I think like a marketing company. For me, it's all about marketing. I'm obsessed with marketing and obsessed with unlocking the ability to market homes in multiple regions that are blue chip across the globe. That's my obsession. But it's fascinating too. The one thing that I do want to talk about is a piece that you put out regularly, which is the rent vesting. Mm-hmm. You're the biggest believer in it. And it's the opposite to my strategy. I think the rent vesting strategy is the easiest strategy to now build wealth in property. I think it's undeniable because the entry into your first house is so difficult. Once you get one, it all starts to go from there.
Yeah.
It hasn't been the strategy for me, but I've been a property enthusiast. So I've been able to go in, renovate, see opportunity. I've got the knowledge base to know what I can achieve in that home if I was to flip. That's hard to accumulate. So talk to me about rent vesting and what you do personally and what you think people should be doing.
Yeah. So rent vesting, it's not a new term, right? Like
No.
Lots of people have been doing it for a while. The issue people have around, because it starts from housing affordability, right? Everyone thinks there's a housing affordability issue, which to an extent there might be. But the reality is whether there is or whether there isn't doesn't change anything.
Well, you can't change it.
So let's assume that there is a housing affordability issue. And the reason people think there is a housing affordability issue is because they look at where their parents grew up 30 or 40 years ago when our population was maybe 30% less than what it is now. And they go, well, it's wrong that I can't afford to also be able to buy a property where I grew up. But they forget that as population grows, demand for property in all areas increases. People are smarter and wealthier than what you are as an individual, and they're going to be able to buy things before you can. So that's just the unfortunate reality of the world. But if you still want to live in that location, but you can't afford to buy there, there's no reason you can't afford to rent there. So you should rent there, and then where you can afford to buy, you go and buy. So you're still growing your wealth. If you look at somewhere like the US, and I used this example the other day, it's like if you're born in the US, let's say you're born in the middle of the United States of America, you don't go, fuck, I can't believe I can't afford to buy a house in New York or LA, because that's where rich people live, right? So why would you assume that you should be able to buy there? And that's how Australia will get in major cities like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth. Like rich people live in major cities, and if you're not rich, unfortunately, the reality is you're just not going to be able to live there, whether you like it or dislike it or agree or disagree. It's just not possible. Now,
and Australia's probably 30 years off that.
Yeah, we're early, right? There's 27 million people in Australia. Wait till there's 35 or 40 or 45. And the unique thing about Australia is 80% of our populations live on the coast. So it's like, it's a big place, Australia, but a lot of it's unusable and uninhabitable in its current state. So people go, Australia's a big place, but it's like, well, we're like very densely populated in some...
Well, what's crazy is people are like, oh, there's nothing in the middle. Well, there was nothing in Dubai. There was nothing in Vegas. Like we haven't actually gone in there and done what needs to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have the population for the land size.
Yeah, or the slave labour like they do in Dubai. But
Mate, don't talk to me about labour, because I'm watching this Burley tram take way too fucking long to be done. And
True.
every time I drive down the Gold Coast Highway, I see no one
No progress.
with a fucking shovel in their hand.
Yeah, they just take the piss. It's the
absurd.
Worst. It's the worst. I mean, that's the pros, right, of places like Dubai. They get things done very, very quickly because it's not bureaucracy. It's like there's a family that runs a county and they run it like a business. But off topic. So let's get back to the rent vesting. So essentially rent vesting is, just renting where you want to live and investing elsewhere. Now, if you're someone like me who, again, is growing a business fast, income's growing fast, if I would have bought a $2 million house a few years ago and now I want to live in a $5 or $6 million house or a $10 million house, I've now got to sell that $2 million house. Entry cost, exit cost, maybe the market wasn't that crashed.
Stamp duty is insane in this country.
Yeah, 4%, 5% of the purchase price. And then you've got to get all the capital you need to then upgrade again. And then if the economy shifts, try and sell a $10 million house when the economy's not that crash hot, very hard, probably going to have to sell at a discount, a lot of risk involved. But what you'll find is as purchase prices increase or the values of properties increase, the rental yields get much lower. So I live in a $13 million property. It cost me $3,800 a week to live there. Work out what a mortgage is on $12 million minus say 30% you need to put in.
It's probably 1/5 of the cost.
Yeah, that's right. And all of my capital would be tied up in this one home. And to be honest, I'm over living there already. I want to live somewhere else. So at the end of the year, I give my keys back to my property manager and I say, thanks so much. And I bounce somewhere else. And then instead of having $12 million tied up in one owner-occupier property, I go and have $12 million tied up in something
6
like
different properties.
Yeah, or like, I bought a wedding venue, for example.
I saw that. What made you go for a wedding venue?
Well, again, it's like this. What the thinking is like. My partner Emma used to run a kids party business, $1,500 to run a kids party. Takes you all fucking Saturday. Sounds good. And I'm like, well, instead of charging $1,500 for a kids party, why don't we charge $40,000 for a wedding? Same shit. Still takes you a full day.
Is it literally $40,000 a wedding?
Yeah, well, depending on what
Ballpark.
time of the year it is and all that type of jazz. But yeah, like average wedding just for venue hire, not food, bev, and all the other stuff. Between 30 and 40 grand.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So
And
now
as a venue gets more established and it gets more in demand, prices.
and when did you
only
start
do
that
one.
business?
Bought that 12 months. Bought that in the December of December of 20. Oh no, it must have been February of 23. 24.
Distressed asset?
No, I paid $2.5 million more than he paid for it a few years prior. So I probably overpaid for it, but I could not replace that property for what I bought it for. I could not build the infrastructure.
And what are you all in now? Have you renovated?
Yeah, probably 8.
8 million.
Yeah.
So you're all in for 8 million.
Mm-hmm.
But how many weddings do you have booked in over
33 since January 1 this year, which is about
so-
700,000 in gross revenue.
Crazy.
And that's 3 months in. And the same thing. It's like I understand how to run
that's
paid
without
ads.
reviews. That's without building a brand. What's it called?
Settlers Rest.
Settlers Rest.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Howes Valley, which is in the Hunter Valley.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's just the high ticket, same model as what I run as a buyer's agent. It's a high ticket model. It's an amazing way to own real estate. It's a commercial farm as well. We run cattle on there. So there's this beautiful land tax.
Now you don't buy, I don't think you buy properties in speculative areas.
No.
You like buying in blue chip.
Yeah, and it's not that speculative areas can't work sometimes.
They're speculative.
But the reality is Warren Buffett's number one rule for making lots of money is not losing any first. If you don't lose any, all you got to do is make a little bit every single year and eventually it compounds to a very big amount. So if you look at the probability of losing money in a speculative marketplace, it's significantly higher than losing money in a blue chip market. That's just fact. Now,
do you think that's part of your point of difference with other advocates that might be, trying to get you buy into growth pockets and growth corridors?
yeah, again, the difference is the business model. So people see it at face value. Jack buys blue chip, these guys buy fucking wherever they buy. That at face value looks like the reason, right? But the reality is how many people can afford to buy a $1 to $3 million asset? The very small minority of Australia, which means my TAM or total addressable market is significantly smaller than if you're selling $600,000 properties to the fucking 10 million Australians that are in Australia, right? Mm-hmm. So people think that by buying lower dollar value properties, by doing higher volumes, they're going to be able to grow a bigger business. But that's because they're retarded and they think about business in the wrong way. I charge 3 times more than anyone else charges. The lifetime value of my customer would be 5 or 6 times minimum.
So what do you charge a client to buy?
35 to 45,000 just for the acquisition, number one. Mm-hmm. And then all the other things that I spoke, all the ancillaries. Yep. Our LTV would be between 100 to 150,000. That's currently.
Yeah.
So, obviously as the business grows, that's going to increase because we're going to have more and more years. Again, that's cost though. That's not what the value the client gets. So the issue with buying the lower dollar value areas, other than my investment strategy not aligning with that, so I didn't do this strategically, it just happened because that's how I personally invest. But every man and their dog does that model. Low dollar value, speculative marketplace, serve more customers, but they all have this issue now where the buyer's agent market is about 5%-ish of the total real estate market. So 550,000 transactions a year, about 25 to 30,000 of them are now buyer's agent initiated. If 80% of those buyer's agents are all following one another in the same locations, let's say they go buy in Darwin and then from Darwin they go buy in some regional shithole in Queensland and then from there, they all buy in the same location.
Well, they're fabricating.
It's fake. It's fake growth.
It is fake growth.
They're creating this market manipulation. But then what happens is they get hundreds and hundreds of clients on their books. They pay shitty retainers and then they can't buy for them because they're all trying to buy into the same location and there's
Or
a
the issue
limited
is
amount of
that
inventory.
if they see very limited growth over the next 4 or 5 years, what they'll see is that, it probably wasn't worth it. But then that advocate might talk about, mitigating tax and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, you want to see capital growth.
Well, that's the only way you make money in real estate.
It's the only way.
I mean, look how you've made money on flips. It's like you're not making money because you could rent that property out for
No.
a couple of grand a week. It's because you're growing your capital by using a huge amount of the bank's money and a small amount of your own money. So if there wasn't the capital appreciation in real estate, you wouldn't do it. And that's also why I say, and I advise our clients, as you get to the back end of your investment journey and you're not using as much of the bank's money or any of the bank's money, so you're not using leverage, real estate's a shit asset. Other than if you were to own your own home debt-free, that's a store of wealth. If you were to own investment properties debt-free, terrible. Because you've got really low rental yields, net yields by the time you factor in expenses like property management, land tax, all that jazz. And you're not using leverage. So the growth you're getting on your money is relatively low.
Property is amazing because of the leverage
100%.
element. That's about it.
Yeah. So back to the question, rent vesting. The reason I rent vest is because I have flexibility both in where I live and how much I spend. The reality is business goes up and down.
But there will come a time when you do drop 10, 15, 20 odd million on the house that...
Cash though. I'll never take on debt to buy a home.
Yeah. Where you live will be debt free.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a store of wealth because it's like, where else can you put that amount of cash, still get growth on it, not have any fees when you sell it other than stamp duty on the way in and selling costs on the way out, unless they change that in the future. Yeah. But that's the only reason I'll do it.
I tell you what, it still blows me away that you're 28 and what I respect the most is how you speak with conviction and you truly believe that what you've put in front of you will come. You actually make it happen. And like what you said before, if you go off course, well, you just get yourself back on. There's always a way to get to the goal that you've put in front of yourself. And because you've eloquated and you've put it out there, you feel the need to make it happen because you've got the energy of everyone around you watching, cheering or not cheering. That doesn't matter. The fact that you've put it out there is what matters. And I love the fact that you put those things into the universe because you attract them back. Jack Henderson, it's been great to see you. Thank you for flying down.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll be cheering from the sidelines as I have been.
Keep hustling.